All right, you need two snapshots, one for this org and one for this org. You can take a full snapshot or a partial snapshot and then get a deployment arrow and connect the two snapshots. And then if you right click on the arrow, you can bring up the deployment tools or the data migration tools, things that move along the arrow between those two orgs. Let's bring up deployment. And the first thing you will see on the first screen is just a summary of the state of those snapshots. So this snapshot over here at left shows that there's been a bunch of changes to Setup Audit Trail, and you can see what all those changes are. So that snapshot is not up to date, which is fine. But if you want it to be up to date, you can take a source snapshot right here. Looking at the destination snapshot, you can see that it's totally up to date. There have been no other deployments or any other Setup Audit Trail changes to this org that have happened after the date of this snapshot. All right, so you can go to Create Assets and build up a job list. And so, for example, these items in red are different between the two orgs. The items in green are available on the source but not on the destination. And the items in gray are the same on both orgs. So let's take a custom object here and move that into the job list so that we want to move that. You can also delete assets and make destructive changes. But you go to the Deploy Metadata tab and you can do a validating deployment or a transactional deployment, or you can also deploy, if it's a production org, this option here is not available to you. So let's just do a test deployment and click the button. And you'll see that there were no errors. That object was able to be moved, and so we can actually move it by doing this. And so that object has been moved to the destination. And so now that object was called A New Hope. Now if you look in the destination snapshot, you'll see that that object is not available in the destination. So you could just take another snapshot, and we finished the second snapshot there. And now you can look inside and you can see there's the object that we moved over now in the destination. The other thing you can do is you can manage the time series and see the changes between the first snapshot and the second snapshot. And in this case, things that have changed will be shown in green or red. There's the new object, and there's also a translation for it. And you can see the profile changes for field permissions, object permissions, so on and so forth, that have all also been moved over to the destination. So here's another deployment example. Let's say that you want to deploy this object, and you can go to Deploy and do a validating deployment. And it'll give you an error message here. It's looking for a parent object in this case. So there's a lot of things you can do. One is you can explain the error message, which will use AI. And that will tell you exactly what to do. Another thing is you can just right-click on parent object and say search for asset type, and it'll find it and add it to the job list automatically. But another thing you can do is just go back to create and look for the parent object and just get everything into the job list, all the dependencies. And you can do a validating deployment and so there's no errors there. So another thing you can do is if you are, here with child object selected, you can click the Add Related button, and it will look at the dependencies and automatically find the parent object, and you can add that to the job list that way. So lots of ways to deploy objects and the other 300 metadata types.